All right, let's get our Facebook friends, family, folks up in here. Some spinning wheels going. 1 and 2. All right, give it a second to breathe. Sip of coffee. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is, what is it? God, Thursday morning? What day of the week is it? Is it November
Must be
3rd?
football time then. You have to mark it by Thursday Night Football.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, heck, we are back. Football is almost every single day of the week. We got Maction going on here on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. I know you were tuning in for Northern Illinois last night, but welcome in, welcome in. It's Thursday morning, November 3rd at 7:30 Mountain Time a.m., and that means it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am your host, Nick Kendell, out here in Seattle, and joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Scott Kennedy on the other end out there in Hotlanta. Scott, good morning to you. How you doing? How are things? And got some kind of breaking Broncos news to get into today.
Yeah, things are good. And, before we put a bow on this Bradley Chubb stuff, which we won't do until the draft, really.
Yeah.
It broke this morning about 7 a.m. Eastern time that he had signed his contract with the Miami Dolphins. And like I said, before we put a bow on it, it's relevant. The discussion about the trade and why it happened and was it the right move? Aaron P has a question coming in. We'll get to. Right away. So it's still relevant news, and we'll get into that for sure. We'll get into some of we may touch a little bit on the next game, but it's a bye week, so still plenty of team building stuff to go along, and we'll have a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are midway through the season. I kept saying to start the year, I was going to give it 8 games before we really had an idea of what this team was, what this offense looked like. And unfortunately, we're 8 games in, and it isn't exactly what we had hoped. But we're going to peel back that onion a bit and get into it. But first, we want to say hello to some people in the chat on this fine Thursday morning. First, we got Ethan coming in, the DWI guy, saying, "Good afternoon, gents in Broncos country." Scott, Ethan, I'm a little jealous you guys got to hang out there in London, but hope you had a good time. Also heard Ethan joined the live stream for a bit there, or made an appearance of some sort. So good to have you in here, Ethan. Good to know that there's a face behind the cool graphic there.
Yeah. It's sometimes I didn't use your last name or anything. Not that you're hard to find when you have your business as your handle, but it's it had a blast in London hanging out, and thanks again for everything you do for this show. I said it to you, I'll say it to everybody. I wouldn't have been in London if not for Ethan and the DWI guys and his generosity for this program.
100%, 100%. Thank you so much. Good to see Ethan. We got Kevin Gray coming in here saying, "Good morning, Broncos country. Nick and Scott, just hoping they are okay for the rest of the season. Hope the 49ers tank." Fan says 68. This will get better. Denver Broncos for life. Hopefully it'll get better. Right now we're on a winning streak right now, right? And if we can put another one together, then you're sitting there at 4-5. Then you got the lowly Raiders at home. You got to get a little revenge game. I mean, one game at a time. I know it's so cliche, but you can only play who's next on your schedule. So, you dug a hole, but you have a chance to dig yourself out here going forward. And luckily, you got a bye week to kind of rectify things and build on that positive momentum. We got Aaron P in here saying, "Good morning. Would you have rather extended Chubb instead of the Gregory signing?" Well, we know now what Chubb got paid.
Well, take that in a vacuum, and then we'll get into why those weren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Yeah. So I like them both. Both of them have extensive injury histories. Randy Gregory's contract is extremely flexible, which is fantastic. It's essentially a 2-year deal where he's getting paid a fraction of what a lot of top edge rushers get. I mean, you look at what Randy Gregory got. I know he's already injured, and that's part of the factor here when you're signing him in here. But compared to what the Raiders paid for Chandler Jones, who is older and has, half a sack so far this season, you are definitely doing a lot better than the Raiders with signing Chandler Jones and getting Chubb out there. I mean, you didn't have to give up anything for Chubb for Gregory besides cap space. It's a little bit of hindsight 2020, but I was listening to the Athletic podcast, and I think it was Mike Sando who covered the Seahawks for a number of years, and he talked about Gregory and Browning versus that of Bradley Chubb. And with Gregory and Browning in this more penny front, which for those at home, a penny front is like 5 down linemen, 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 edges, and then 1 linebacker. You need those edges to be able to be more flexible in terms of, are they coming or are they going? And Gregory and Browning specifically are more of the outside linebacker body types and abilities where they're better going downhill and rushing the passer, but they can drop into space pretty smoothly, length, fluidity in the hips, et cetera, et cetera. Chubb is more of your classic hand in the dirt kind of guy. He can do some stuff dropping in space, but he's more of a classic 4-3 defensive end or edge rusher compared to those two guys with the defense the Broncos are running right now. So I thought that was an excellent point. So maybe for this type of defense going forward with the Scott, roll your eyes here, simulated pressures, are those edge rushers coming and going? Zone blitzes, they're not always zone though, because they play a lot of cover one man kind of stuff with simulated pressure up front still. But I digress. Both good edge rushers. I think the Broncos came out about as good as you could hope, considering the circumstances around both players.
Yeah, and Aaron, I saw this question, and I like this. Would you rather extended Chubb instead of the Randy Gregory signing? They don't really have a lot to do with the other. The numbers behind Randy Gregory, you see 5 years, $70 million. No, it's not. It's actually a 2-year deal with club options.
Yeah.
So it's, as Nick said, very flexible. So you're talking about 2 years, $30 million for Randy Gregory, and you're talking 3 years, $65 million for Bradley Chubb. That's the real money in these deals right now. So it was almost just a little less than double the money to keep Chubb as opposed to sign Gregory. So with that flexibility, you got your Bradley Chubb replacement in Gregory for next season. That's what he's there for. And if it doesn't work out, you can get out. You're out from his contract. You're out from it. Right now, would you re-sign him? No. These guys. But I'd say the same thing about Chubb. Would I have given Chubb a 3-year, $65 million guaranteed deal? Probably not. That's a lot of money for a guy who has had trouble staying on the field. The Randy Gregory one was a risk, but it was much less risky financially than what the Dolphins just tied into Bradley Chubb, which is $20+ million over 3 years. So would I have rather signed Chubb instead of Gregory? On these deals, I'd probably rather have 2 years, $30 million of Randy Gregory than 3 years, $65 million of Bradley Chubb and a first-round draft pick. Let's not forget that part. That's when we're talking about this. Why does people are upset about this deal? One, I kind of said that I believe. Let me mute my phone real quick. Sorry, I forgot to do that. I believe that you're in discussions with Bradley Chubb during this whole time. Can we get an extension done? Can we get a deal done? You're having those discussions. What's it going to take? George Paton basically said, yeah, we had those discussions, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, he did. He didn't get the answer he wanted. Then you're down to, where is your season? Okay, if we're not going to be able to bring him back, then what is he going to be for this season for us? Okay, well, we're not 6-1. We're not 7-2. We're sellers. Okay. So would I have rather had Randy Gregory at 2 years and 30 and a first-round pick than Bradley Chubb? The short answer on that one is yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Broncos beefed up their draft capital doing that, beefed up a little bit of flexibility with cap space for next offseason as well. Hopefully they can use that to increase their security on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line. If you want to increase your security, make sure you guys are checking out our sponsor today, NordVPN. Broncos country, if you're like me, you're increasingly getting more concerned about cybercrime with people stealing your private data and invading your privacy. I'm not all that tech savvy, but that's why I use NordVPN on all my browsers. Whether it's the desktop, tablet, laptop, or phone, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and NordVPN protects you as a one-stop shop for all things cybersecurity. It's incredibly easy to use, which means I don't have to be an MIT graduate to figure it out. With just one click, I'm protected. It's very intuitive. With NordVPN account, I can have up to 6 devices protected. I no longer have to worry about hackers, malicious sites, and pop-ups. For a price of a single cup of coffee per month, I have complete peace of mind knowing that my devices and data are protected. Plus, with NordVPN, I'm never a slave to media blackouts. I can switch my virtual location to a market that is showing the NFL game I want to watch so I don't miss out on any of the action and can watch it all live. Broncos country, grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/MHH to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/MHH to get 4 months free. Make sure you check it out today.
All right. Thanks to NordVPN, and thank you, Broncos country, for supporting those who help support us. Kevin7 coming in green with the super chat on YouTube. He says, fellas, for real, losing faith in Hackett. I think a lot of us are. Same mistakes every game. Hopefully we use the first-round pick to trade down. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of faith in Nathaniel Hackett across the board right now. There is time to turn that around, coming off a nice win, get another one, start stacking a couple wins, but that has to happen. If it doesn't, the trajectory, did the trajectory change for you, Nick? I think the straight line down, like, okay, it's done, may have flattened out a little bit. Okay, maybe he's got a chance and that arrow has to point up for him to come back. It may have flattened out a little bit, but it's still a downward trajectory. I think he's still on the one and done path for right now. I don't think he's done enough in one game against Jacksonville to say that, yeah, let's give him another year to make sure. I don't think we're there yet.
No, we're not there yet. I don't know. As far as the one and done, I thought you were talking about the games. They could easily lose this Titan game and he'd be out of a job. But it depends on how
they're more serious about it than I am. He's talking week to week. I'm in at least getting the year.
I don't think he is the full year right now, from what I've gathered from people who I respect and have closer ties than I do. So it sounds like they were fully prepared to, if they lost that Jacksonville game, that they maybe were going to be left in London, metaphorically speaking. So definitely a possibility. I don't know who has faith in Hackett, but they won. They bought himself another week. It's kind of ugly right now, but at the same time, they have the ability to protect themselves and keep giving themselves lifelines. If they go out to Nashville and the offense looks better and they stop the stupid gosh darn penalties, then, maybe you buy yourself 2 weeks. Maybe you buy yourself the season. I said at the beginning, it's really cliche, but you are in a hole. You have to take it 1 week, one challenge, one drive, one play at a time going forward here. There's no other way to do it. You can't worry about the outside noise. And we'll figure out about Hackett's ability to deal with adversity and everything. Part of this is maybe not hiring all the right people around him on the offensive side of the ball. You put yourself in that position, hiring the staff. Part of it might also be the power dynamics between the quarterback and the head coach. But it's the hand you were dealt, and you can only control what you can control and blame yourself for what you have the ability to change and be better at.
Yeah, so that's on you too as a head coach, Nick.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
So Kevin, appreciate you coming in. Kenny Booker, KB82 coming in. Good morning. Is there any word on what Denver's Judy was asking and what the Giants offered? I saw something early that morning from Giants beat writers basically saying it was like a second and change, like a 2 and a 4. Somewhere in that neighborhood, somewhere like a Roquan Smith deal, and they weren't willing to meet that. That's rumor and innuendo that sounds plausible, so I chose to believe it. Yeah. But I don't know that for a fact at all, Kenny. And Jake coming in, I like this question, Nick. Said, hey, guys, we all know Glasgow is a way better option, but does the coaching staff know that when Cushenberry comes back healthy?
Again, this is purely hearsay, but my understanding was the coaching staff was fine with multiple options at the offensive line allotment, and it was more Russell Wilson pulling for Cushenberry being that center as opposed to Glasgow. Now, again, not talking to Russell Wilson directly. I haven't heard that from one of the offensive linemen directly, but I'd heard it from multiple unconnected people. So that makes me think that there might be something there to that. That said, proof. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, now it's up to Glasgow. If Glasgow, if Wally Pips is behind, for those of you who aren't 100 years old like I am, Wally Pipp was the player who was replaced by Lou Gehrig that started the Iron Man streak. And I think that's right. I'm getting so old, I'm forgetting these things.
Right. Nope, you're right.
I remember Wally Pipp more than I was like, it is, Cal Ripken's the Iron Man, so it's up to him now. It's up to Glasgow. If Glasgow plays better and the Denver Broncos keep playing the way they did in the second half and can continue on and push on in that direction, Cushenberry's not coming back in. Flat out. You'd have a revolt on your hands. It's just not how sports work. We hate to see a guy lose his place to injury. He didn't lose it to injury. He's losing his place because the guy is playing better than he was before. So we'll see. And then Kevin G coming in also. He asks, what grade would you give us for the new players and the Chubb trade, Nick?
Chase Edmonds, and I said this last night, and I feel like I hadn't heard this being talked about from anybody in the Denver side of things, but I think it's an important aspect of this. Broncos need a little bit more explosiveness and pass catching ability out of the running back position. So trading in for Chase Edmonds makes sense. He got a big deal from Miami this year coming from Arizona. However, he stunk with Miami so far this season. So maybe that'll be helpful for him coming in here. But a big reason that he's here is because of accounting.
Mhm.
There was a deadline for when teams could take on cash in a trade. So the Broncos eat whatever when they trade Chubb. That timeline passed when they traded Chubb. So that meant that the Dolphins had to move somebody in order to make financial room to take on Chubb. And lo and behold, you have a contract here coming in with Chase Edmonds, who has just signed this offseason, coming over to Denver, makes it so that the finances work out for Bradley Chubb to be sent to Miami. So that one, again, I think it's more of a financial thing than, oh my God, Chase Edmonds is going to totally revolutionize the position for the Broncos on offense. Maybe you get 5 snaps, 10 snaps a game. We'll see. We'll take it game by game with him. As far as Jacob Martin, I think you bring in much needed depth, and I think it's insurance for Browning and Gregory as much as anything. It's kind of like for Scott over here, the Falcons trading for Felton at the cornerback position. You're dealing with injuries. You still are wanting to compete right now. Didn't cost you very much in terms of capital to bring it in here. You offer some short-term competence for the position, and I think and some special teams ability as well. I don't think he's going to come in and displace Jonathan Cooper. I don't think he's going to compete with him. But he offers more special teams and run defense than somebody like Nick Bonito. So I think they're like C trades. It's the big one is the first round pick for Bradley Chubb, plus
Well,
the
and what's funny
flexibility.
is the profile just on paper for Martin looks a lot like Malik Reed. He
Yeah.
might be better in run defense, but it's like, okay, this guy's got decent numbers. He's got numbers similar to Randy Gregory. How come he's being cast off? I agree with you. Edmonds for me was a throw in. I didn't really even consider it. It was the first round pick, but to me, I said Tuesday morning, and then I get off and search Twitter. I'm like, oh crap, this really is going to happen after I just get done saying,
90%.
90%. I'm like, there's no way somebody's giving up a first round pick and signing him to $120 million. Well, yeah, it happens. So, and Miami did it. So that I thought it was that improbable, and Denver was able to do it. That's an A for me, man. For all the reasons I just said, you're going to lose him anyway. With or without this trade in 2023, Bradley Chubb is not going to be a Denver Bronco. That's everything I believe based on everything that has happened. I said that going in. These are the reasons why you do this. And then it happened. And then people that have chirped just a little bit, that's what was happening. He wasn't going to be here. He was not going to be here unless you tag him, and then he threatens to sit out, and it ends up being really ugly anyway.
Yeah.
And it's $25 million that you don't necessarily have. So you really had to make a choice between Draymond Jones and Bradley Chubb, because you've got escalators coming up in the salary cap. Yeah, you might have 17 now, and you can change that and restructure some guys, but you're going to have to pay Draymond Jones. Russell Wilson's salary cap hit starts escalating. Randy Gregory's salary cap hit triples. So you've got some escalators coming in. You couldn't afford $25 million in Chubb and then keep some other guys. You made a decision, and you got a first round pick for a guy who wanted to leave anyway. The Chubb trade's an A for me. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, when Bradley Chubb was off to a terrific start after the Broncos were 2-1 to start the season, I asked around a little bit on this. Like, I know the Broncos financially doesn't make sense. I love Draymond Jones. What are the chances we can get both these guys? And all the answers I kept getting back was, right now, I'd consider it a long shot for Bradley Chubb to be back here in 2023. Given the moves the Broncos set up right now, obviously want to see what happens with Bonito and Browning, and if Gregory can stay healthy. Well, Bonito right now, I'm not ready to. I was not big on the draft pick of Bonito when it happened, just because I thought he was so detrimental in the run game.
Right.
But playing the penny front, where it's a 5-man front, you have a lot more one-on-one situations, and I think that's more beneficial than the gap and a half or really hard edge setting that you need for more of a 4-man front.
Yeah, and just what Nick is saying here is in an old-fashioned nickel and dime, which is me old-fashioned, is 4-2. You're going 4-man front. The old nickel and dime defenses that you hear with 5 defensive backs and 6 defensive backs are 4-man fronts.
Yep.
And this is 3-man. This is basically a 3-3. Or depending on how you want to change it, with 1 inside linebacker, 2 edge guys, and 3. So a 5-man front ends up being that way. Well, as Nick is saying, with a heavier front, with your 6 defensive backs out there, you're basically getting rid of the inside linebackers.
Yep.
Which is okay. And yeah, with a 5-man front, Bonito, if you're a one-trick pony and your one trick is sacking the quarterback, that's a pretty good one to have. You'll make a lot of money in this league.
Yeah, and also pretty good in space. I mean,
Mhm.
Oklahoma, when they used him out there, he was honestly more of a second level stack linebacker in those rush downs where he played at the second level and came downhill versus the edge position at the when there was pass situations. Kind of like for anybody at home, kind of some throw out back names. Bruce Irvin did that a lot with the Seahawks, played that second level and then would come down and be an edge rusher on obvious pass downs.
Bruce Irvin was interesting. I don't know if I've told you this story before. I was out at scouting players at Mount San Antonio Junior College, which is in California. I see this guy. I'm like, where is this guy from? He's like, Stevenson High School. Stevenson High School may have been in my backyard. I
Mm,
broke every single piece of news in Georgia that came out of Stevenson High School. I'm like, how did I miss this guy? There's no way I miss this guy. And they're like, oh, he was in prison when he was 18.
mm,
I was
no.
like, oh, I never verified that, but that was the word. I was like, okay, that's how I miss Bruce Irvin. But Bruce Irvin you've heard me say, the word has become twitchy eventually, but he just kind of reminded me of pogo stick, the
Yeah.
bounce that he had. He's like,
Yep.
boing, boing. I was like, I love this guy. And that makes sense. That's a perfect comp for him with the thin. He's not all that big. May not ever get all that big,
No.
but has the ability to flat out move and get after the quarterback.
Yep. And with the 5-man front, the penny front, if you will, I think there's a little bit more value to that position, especially at 64. I mean, let's say he's never a starting edge rusher. You need 3 out there. And if your super sub is a guy who can bend the corner and be out there and like, okay, it's 3rd and 5 or 2 and 10, it's an obvious pass situation. God bless. Pin your ears back. Let's go. So Jacob Foster coming in with the support over on Facebook. God bless you, Jacob. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah,
We
it's been a
appreciate
little
you.
while, Jacob. Welcome
Yeah.
back.
Welcome back, Jacob. Hope you're doing well. We got some more supers coming in here. Ethan coming in with the 20 pounds, coming in saying, in addition to saving cash this year by not having Chubb to pay Chubb's salary, they also save salary cap next year by being able to carry the savings over. Absolutely. Maybe some of that savings will be directed quickly to Draymond Jones. I would love to get Draymond Jones taken care of sooner than later. It sounded like, I think in George Payton's press conference, it's more likely to come in the offseason. You do have the tag to play with Draymond Jones if it comes to that. Um, Draymond Jones is a phenomenal player. Don't want to pat myself on the back too hard on this because it's pretty obvious. And my favorite position
Ouch.
is the interior defensive line. So I like watch that very thoroughly. But I've been a huge Jones fan for the past few years. And this offseason, banging the drum that this guy's a top 10 interior defensive lineman. He's playing like a top 10 interior defensive lineman this season. He's probably going to get paid like a top 5 interior defensive lineman. So that tag in your pocket, which would probably come out to what, $17 million,
It'd
gives you
knock
some
on the door at
flexibility.
20 again.
Yeah.
It would. By the time any other deals get done in the offseason before you tag him,
Yeah.
it'll knock on the door at 20 again, which, you talk about, okay, nobody wants to play on the tag. Draymond's on 3 million this year. You're going to give me a 6x raise? Okay. That's a little different than and Ethan makes a great point here about Chubb's salary because Chubb was on an option which is all salary. Okay? So your 5th year option is all salary. What do I mean by that? Meaning the salary cap savings, it basically comes off of your base salary, not previous signing bonuses, where most players' compensation is these days. It's in signing bonuses. You pay a guy $1 million. I mean, let's look at Russell Wilson's contract right now. His base salary is 2. It's 2 million. So if you traded him, the person that would be they'd be on the hook for 2 million, you'd save the prorated version of that. You'd get 1.1 million in savings, but because he was on a fully guaranteed 1-year option deal, his entire 14 million was guaranteed and was all in salary. So roughly $7 million in savings carried over in this deal for the Broncos. So great point, Ethan. Appreciate you coming in with the support for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, just getting back to Draymond Jones so far this season, PFF doesn't have him graded super high, which I don't know what's going on with PFF's grades in the trenches for the Broncos.
I told you, the Falcons PFF guys are really good. I haven't been thrilled with PFF and the Broncos. I guarantee you they're different people.
Oh,
100%
they are.
guaranteed.
They are. But looking at Draymond Jones, he's only graded a 53.7 so far this season, which I don't get a
I almost
68.7 pass
spit out
rush
my
grade.
lion coffee when you
Yeah,
said that.
absolutely. But his total pressures so far this season tied for second overall out of all interior defensive linemen, only trailing Jeffrey Simmons and Quinnen Williams. Right now, Draymond Jones is an elite company. The top guys, in my opinion, not the interior defensive linemen in the NFL, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons and Quinnen
You don't
Williams.
say it, I'm going to reach out and smack you. You better say
Grady Jarrett's up there as well.
Thank you.
Jonathan Allen, Dexter Lawrence. Quinnen Williams has really come on this season. I was
saying Grady Jarrett, Atlanta Falcons, and again, it's not that he's an Atlanta Falcon, it's that he's Grady Jarrett and does everything. He's one of those guys with a big old laugh and deep laugh, smile on his face. 5th round draft pick, underappreciated guy.
Yeah.
And he's just an awesome human being, and he's playing like a madman this year.
Yeah, he's been good. I've had the ability to watch both of them. I think Draymond's been a little bit better than Grady this season, but Grady's great. Draymond, we might have to agree to disagree with that. We'll see what the contract comes out here. But Vincent coming in here saying this year is young, still time for Chubb to beat Chubb and be injured. Not wishing for that, Vincent. We don't have to cheer against the Dolphins or Chubb at all. Chubb was nothing but a professional here in Denver, so I'm wishing for him for nothing but the best, unless they are fighting for a playoff spot with the Broncos at the end. But I think that it's probably going to come down to another team besides Miami, because Miami probably put themselves in position to be that first AFC wildcard behind the Bills.
Yeah, they're in the wrong division to try and go for a bye. But yeah, Vincent, that again. Would you have felt comfortable? You get the news instead of deadline day, they announce an extension, and it's 6 years, 120 million is what they say, but it's really 23 a year for the next 3 years. That's into your cap. I think it probably would have been more positive, than negative compared to the trade. But there would have been a lot of, oh my God, that's scary. That's scary out here. So it's like, okay, instead of 25, you got 25 million back in salary cap availability and a 1st round draft pick. Yep. I'll take that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, comes back around. Draymond Jones, one of your better players, and excited to see what he can do with this contract. We got KB82, Kenneth, coming in saying, now that we have 1st rounders, are there any right tackles that should go picks 15 to 20 that Denver should zero in on? Couple things here. One, we are still far enough away that to know how the draft board is going to slot out, we don't even know. I mean, a year ago at this point, people were talking about the Minnesota offensive tackle Daniel Falalele being a top pick, and he ends up going the 4th round or 5th round. So a lot of things are going to play out. I do think that this offensive tackle class there's been some guys that have emerged. I know this is going to probably get some eye rolls from some of the people in the chat here. There's a lot of hype surrounding the Northwestern guy, Peter Skoronsky. I believe I'm pronouncing the name correctly there at Northwestern. Sounds like he's going to have sub 32-inch arms. So count me all the way out at him at offensive tackle. Maybe a center or guard here, but am I taking a center or guard? If the Broncos are picking like 25 to 32, we can start to talk about that there in the 1st round, but not in the 15 to 20 range. Ohio State has 2 offensive tackles that we should be interested in. Their right tackle is about as big as Daniel Falalele. Penn State has a amazing left tackle who maybe we shouldn't even consider him anymore, because I don't know if you saw Dane Brugler's first big board came out yesterday, and he had Oli Fataku, I can't remember his name, as the 5th overall prospect.
You're going to struggle with this class.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Maryland has a really good offensive tackle, and as does Syracuse. And USC has another one also. So this seems like there's some offensive linemen here that we will luckily get a chance to consider, but it's still pretty early. The other thing I want to say here, sorry, I'm a little long-winded here, Scott. Broncos should never zero in on a single position in the draft. The draft is extremely fluid. The free agency is about finding players at specific positions and filling out the roster. The draft is about long-term team building. So if you zero in on one single position, you are really limiting yourself. It's like, let's say every single draft pick is a dice roll, and you have a chance to, if you have multiple positions, then all you need to do is hit evens, right? If we hit evens, we're going to be good. So you have multiple options here, 1, 3, or 5. If we roll that, we're going to be fine. If you're limiting yourself to one single position, now all I get is I have to roll double 6s. Otherwise I'm in trouble. And so you just make the odds so much harder. So don't zero in on a single position ever.
No, you trust your board and you try and fit a need. But if I get to my spot and I'm picking at 18, it's like, okay, we'd like to get an offensive tackle here. And I look at my board and I've got grades next to everybody. Let's say I've got a numerical grade on it, and I've got 93, 93, 93, 93, and my next offensive tackle is 88. I'm not taking an offensive tackle. No. I'm taking one of these guys. Now, if it's a 92, maybe I flip a guy and I do that, but also maybe I try and move down a couple spots. That's always something you want to do too. And I just want to reiterate here that you might put a guy at right tackle early, when he comes in, but you're not necessarily drafting in the first round for right tackles. First round picks are left tackles, and it would be a Chubb, a long-term Garrett Bowles replacement, which is fine. Garrett Bowles is getting older, and he's super expensive. And he's actually, dare I say, has a contract that is movable next year. There's an $8 million savings, or somewhere in that neighborhood. I think it's 18 with a 10 dead cap. That makes you vulnerable as a player. See Patrick Havener coming in with the stars and the support. He says, "Good morning, men. We will ride before this year is out." Maybe. Again, it was a good start. I was kind of angry watching the game when Graham Glasgow comes in and starts doing a good job. I'm like, what takes so effing long? It's one of this, and part of that I said before is all the grief I got at the beginning of the internet scouting players. You're not a coach. What do you know? I know coaches make mistakes. Trust the coaches. I trust the coaches to do what they think is best. I do not trust them to get it right every time, or else they wouldn't all get fired. Yes, they're going to make mistakes. So would I. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm perfect or better, but sometimes it seems really easy, and it's easier to see when you're farther away. Lloyd Cushenberry is a problem for this team. That's what I see.
Honestly, all of them were a problem so far this season. Quinn Miners has been up and down, but very helpful in the run game. And your best offensive lineman so far this season, dare I say, was Cameron Fleming, who you brought in like right before the season started, which is insane. I wouldn't be upset of bringing him back next year. And Scott, I do want to disagree with you to a certain extent. I think that historically speaking, the right tackle position was not a first round pick. But since the game has changed a bit over the last 10 years, where before it used to be the blind side versus not blind side, most of your snaps are coming from shotgun these days.
Yeah,
so there's not really
tackle.
A blind side.
It is, but
yeah,
if you look at the money, the left tackles are still getting paid more. Yeah. The guys that are going higher are playing left tackle. It's still, while it is changing, the money and the draft picks still say left tackle is the more important. It's where general managers are pouring their resources.
I think there's a little bit of selection bias there because a lot of teams are developing offensive lines, and the thought process is, I put my best guy at left tackle.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's still happening.
It is still happening. But I think from a team building perspective, tackle is tackle. If you can get a good one, you can shift the line one way or the other.
Which I agree with.
Yeah, I agree especially with how opposing teams these days, defenses, if you will identify which tackle is the worst one. We'll put our best pass rusher against the worst one. So you need to be strong at both sides. And over the last 5-10 years, the best right tackles in football have been first-round picks. Not a shock here, but like Ryan Ramczyk, first-round pick, top 5 pick, Lane Johnson out there, Tristan Wirfs, right tackle, a top 14 pick.
My point on Kenny's question wasn't, I'm not targeting a right tackle. I'm targeting an offensive tackle.
Yes. Yep.
You're not going, I'm not scouring the right side of somebody's line. I'm looking at left, and normally in college, the best guys, especially in college where there's not as many of them, the best tackles are going to be playing left tackle 99 times out of 100 in college.
Yep.
So I'm looking at left tackles as an offensive tackle for my team. And again, if I move them over to right, that's fine.
Yep.
But just, my point was, I'm looking at OT, not RT.
Yeah. Yep. And that the conversation here is not more so directed at you, Scott, but just a general for the chat and how I perceive it in today's NFL. Ryan Slavic coming in here saying, did you guys see the Dolphins paid Chubb for his contract? Thank God we dodged that bullet.
And the Broncos would have to pay him big. I kind of agree with you.
Yep.
I do. That's part of it. Because again, it make people. I think people would generally be happy if, like Ryan. I don't know if you heard this when you came in. We're a couple minutes behind on pulling up comments. On trade deadline day, instead of a trade announced, they announced the contract extension that the Dolphins signed. If they announced that for the Broncos, George Paton comes out. We didn't trade Bradley Chubb. No way. We have agreed to a 5-year, $120 million deal. And then the numbers come out, and it's really a 3-year, $65 million deal, 65 guaranteed. How would that have made you feel? That would have made me nervous. That would have made me nervous.
Yeah. And also feeling that the area this team needs to pour resources in is now limited to attack going forward. Now you have more cap space and another draft pick to get it. We also got Art H coming in saying, is cutting Garrett Bowles an option if we go tackle in the draft? I think cutting Garrett Bowles is an option, regardless of tackle in the draft. That would come prior to the draft. Personally, I'm hoping that they approach him with a contract renegotiation where let's say they come to him right now. I don't even know what his contract is right now, but I know that you can save a lot of money next season.
His numbers aren't terrible next year. He's got an 18 cap hit. That's high. It'll put him in the top 10, but it's not crazy. Jake Matthews, Atlanta Falcons number goes up to 31 next year at offensive tackle. That's high. He's still, for what he should be, if you cut him, it's performance-based because he's not playing very well. I still think it's close enough that you might renegotiate like Nick's saying, but I don't think – but yes, to answer your question, Art, yes, his contract makes him vulnerable. I don't think it'll happen yet. I don't think you can afford it from a competitive standpoint. I don't think you can afford to make that move.
You have to remake 2 of the positions on your interior offensive lineman next year and right tackle as well. So it's just
then you have to remake 2 positions on at tackle also. Yep. One with a draft pick, and then what?
So yeah, I think it's way too much turnover in one season. I think more likely you approach him with a contract renegotiation that ups the guarantees massively. That would keep him here in 2023 and probably 2024, gets him more money in his pocket, gives him some security, kind of like what you did with Graham Glasgow. Albert Knopper is coming in saying, who's your MVP in the last game against the Jags? Mine was Dulcich. MVP of the game against the Jags. I mean, it's Draymond Jones. The AFC Defensive Player of the Week, 3 tackles for loss, pressures out both wazoos. I mean, he was a man possessed in that game against a very highly paid and talented interior Jags defensive line. Draymond Jones was a dude.
I didn't get to watch the interior line on defense as closely as I would normally like, so I'm going to go with the flash play, and I'm going to say Justin Simmons because that interception at the goal line changed the game.
Yeah.
Or I might just go Graham Glasgow because his insertion into the game changed the game. MVP, Graham Glasgow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's – Graham Glasgow follows me on Twitter, so I can't say anything bad. Savage Boy Kev.
He was if he wasn't the difference, he certainly was a difference in this game.
We've been calling for Graham Glasgow to be started at center for a while, but I don't want that to be misconstrued as he is a long-term answer there. This is a stopgap beyond stopgap.
He improves the team right now. Yes. How much? We'll see. We'll see, but he is a better option, and it was worth, again, just to show some accountability, it was worth making the move just to shake it up a little bit, just to shake it up some. Yep. And again, I think everybody else has been moved around a little bit. I don't think Cushenberry and Dalton Reisner are untouchable.
No.
And to this point, Nick, they had been.
Yeah. I think there's a good chance that Reisner might be benched at some point, depending on if Tom Compton comes back or if he continues to struggle. We'll see. Savage Boy Kev come in and saying, what are the chances Peyton trades back? Because I think so. It depends on how the board falls. It depends on what the offers are. It depends on how this quarterback class shakes up, where you're picking. So too many factors right now. Peyton said he's going to be on every deal, and that includes trading back. I think it's more likely the Broncos trade back than trade up. I see some people saying the Broncos should trade their first-round pick this year and their next year to go get the best tackle in this class. Wrong-o. That's a terrible strategy for this team, in my opinion, especially with the uncertainty of the offensive tackle or positions in general. The only position you should be trading up for like that, I think, is quarterback, and that's not happening for the Broncos here.
I just don't like trading up. Quarterback, maybe. I don't like trading up. Having watched this stuff for so long, the difference between the 25th player and the 35th player is just so minuscule year in and year out that you're better off trading the 25th to get the 30th and the 35th, or the 35th, 42nd, and 50th. Yeah. The more chances you have, the better chances you have of hitting because it's an inexact science. So I don't like the chances of trading back, as Nick just said, much better than trading up. Trading up, miss me on that one.
Especially where this team is right now. You're going to be paying Russell Wilson a lot of money. And I know the Broncos are going to be wealthy in terms of ownership, but you still have to play around the salary cap. One way to do that when you have a very expensive quarterback is to have young players on cheap contracts going forward. It helps your depth. So free agencies for the immediate, the draft is for the long-term health of the roster. It should be more about that. Lawrence Rivera coming in with the support.
Lawrence is still pissed about the trade. This is our George Payton don't like him guy
right now. for now.
Whatever the opposite of a stan is, that
Detractor.
yeah, and I don't know, Lawrence, if you've been a fan for years and years and years, but it's hard. Jerry Seinfeld said it 35 years ago. You root for laundry. You're not rooting for players. They come and go these days with free agency and everything and the business of football. They come and go. You're rooting for the jersey.
Yep.
Which is, you've heard me say before, Lawrence, that when you're in this as a living, as a professional, you end up rooting for the name on the back of the jersey a lot more than the name on the front. And this is why, because you follow the players, you end up rooting for the players. If I had an emotional attachment to Bradley Chubb, I'd be following him in Miami Dolphin. I don't particularly care. I'm interested to see how he does, just to analyze a trade and see it. Well, it's talking points. But, we're interested in the Denver Broncos and their comings and goings. But I get it. I do. I think he said he's bought several jerseys, and none of them are here anymore. That's why you go get a retired player. Someone else mentioned that in the chat. So I know you're hurting, Lawrence. And George Payton is not infallible in all this. That's for sure.
Nope, he's not. But we didn't even read the comment here. But we appreciate you, Lawrence. What's up, guys? I don't even care. Just going to sit back and watch them play this year. But it's Peyton's second year. We've only been getting worse record-wise. I don't care about players individually. Right now, the coaching hire and the contract extension for Russell Wilson look poor. And if they don't turn it around next year, he might get another chance at another head coach if Hackett's moved on from. But he's got to start getting it right. Luckily, for Peyton's credit, I think the draft picks more or less have been pretty darn good. So that's something you got to build on. You have another draft pick now. So hopefully that'll continue to be good. And typically it takes, 3 draft cycles before that core of a roster really starts to come together for a good drafting general manager. So hopefully they can stack another solid one on there. It looks like this last draft class is starting to come together as well. I thought Mathis has been playing better and better. Good to see Benito out there as even if he's your first edge off the bench. We don't need to rehash that conversation, but there's a lot of value there if he's a good pass rusher, and Dulcich as well. So you have, a 1, 2 3s this upcoming draft class, maybe even 2 4s.
You draft some offensive linemen, please.
I want to pay offensive linemen. I don't have time to develop. Also, I don't trust Butch Berry to develop. Yeah, both.
Both. You can, if you're going to have to get a couple. Again, I can find players that will help this team right away.
Yep.
In the middle rounds, and I can find them in free agency. They're cheap. Cheap. And Tim Durr says, I thought Reisner was going to be traded at the trade deadline. Tim, I kind of asked this rhetorically the other day, but if you're on the outside looking in, let's say I'm a New York Giants fan, and I say, why on earth would I want anybody off of the Broncos offense that isn't good enough for the Broncos offense? I mean, when you think about it like that, it's like, let's go to one of the bottom 5 offenses in the league and get a guy that they don't want. When you think about it, you'll understand why Reisner was not traded. Reisner is playing terribly. He's not playing very well at all. Who else would want him? We're trying to bench him. We've been trying to get him replaced since last year for me. So if I'm a general manager of another team, why would I be coming after Dalton Reisner with a draft pick? I think you might have your answer there.
Yeah, I thought maybe you could get a 5th round pick for him or something, like you get a 5th this year and trade a 2024-7. But I think the Cushenberry injury might have soiled that ability, because maybe you don't trust some of the interior offensive line you have there. So is what it is. Probably gone after the end of the season. Coming back to the point though, Scott, I am all in. We'll see what happens here. The Green Bay Packers are in cap hell this upcoming offseason. Pay Elton Jenkins a bleep ton of money. Before this season, he was one of the top 5 interior offensive linemen in football. He can play all 5 spots on the offensive line as well. He's scheme versatile as well. He's been dealing with an injury this season, but man, before this, he was incredible. I am paying that guy big money to come to Denver next season. Left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. I don't care. I am putting a stalwart in here. If it would have been a year ago and the Broncos were in this position, I'd be screaming, pay Brandon Scherf big money. He ended up going to the Jags, and that Jags offensive line, we saw it this last week. They are opening up some damn holes right now, and Brandon Scherf's a big part of that. And he's helped Jawan Taylor out there at right tackle take huge steps forward as well. So I am big on Elton Jenkins. And Jenkins is great at guard, not at T, says Dr. Van Nordstrand. I agree with you. It's that versatility, though, that I think even adds more value. So I agree. You bringing him in to play guard, but in a pinch to have that ability to also kick out to tackle is very nice. So I'm looking to do that. And then you can bring in a right tackle and Cam Fleming and hopefully a center as well. Yesterday, I mentioned maybe paying Garrett Bradbury, but the more I think about that, I love Garrett Bradbury. But because he is so small, I worry about bull rushers with him. And that's been an issue at Minnesota. And then that can be really compounded with Russell Wilson. So maybe a little bit more of a stalwart guy, someone like Elton Jenkins, who I loved in the draft. Wanted the Broncos to draft him over Dalton Reisner in that class. I think he went 2 picks after Dalton Reisner.
Says he went number 44 overall, round 2.
And I think Dalton Reisner went 42 or 41. So there's like Drew Lock and Dalton Reisner back to back, maybe 40. But either way, Elton Jenkins has been awesome. Would love to pay him. But Scott, we got to get to our main topic here. We're at 45 minutes. So I'm rapid fired on some grades. I'm going to go first. The quarterback position, I'm going to give them a D+ on the season. Russell Wilson's been poor, and also Brett Rippon is bad. You can't go put yourself in a situation where your backup quarterback is as bad as Brett Rippon. He's a fine quarterback 3. Never liked him as a quarterback 2. Not good enough. I'm going to give him a D+. It's somewhat graded on the curve because I expected more from Russell Wilson, but they've not been good enough. D+.
Yeah, again, when you factor in expectations, you think it's definitely an F. We expected so much more. On the whole, he's had some good moments, some bad moments. How much of it's on him? How much of it isn't on him? You've heard me say offensive line a zillion times. That again, I wouldn't give him a failing grade, but relative to expectations, it's an F and then some. In a vacuum, it's probably a D. I think that's about right. Quarterback play.
Yep. Unfortunately, okay, running backs now. we're rolling through this one. Running backs, I'm going to give them probably a D+ as well. Javonte Williams, I thought was looking good there early on. The Melvin Gordon fumbles are unacceptable. How they're using him now is not great. Latavius Murray, I know that the Broncos are getting 3 or 4 yards of carry with him, but it's a rugby scrum. Every time he touches the ball, it's hideous to watch. There's no explosive ability in there. It's just guys pushing each other. Then Mike Boone, actually, I thought Mike Boone might have been your best looking running back there in that Jets game, and then he gets injured, which sucks. But the running backs have been poor. Losing Javonte Williams sucks, no doubt. It's a dependent position because of how the offensive line has stunk. I don't care what the PFF analytics say on that unit. They've been horrible, specifically on the interior. So I'm going to give the running backs a D+.
I wasn't quite as down on them because I was thinking they'd be higher than that, and then you factor in the fumbles and I move them down to a C. So I think they've been okay, and that's where I am on this. And again, I'll repeat, it's tough to get a good evaluation on the running backs when the offensive line is so poor. So we move on to the offensive line, F. The offensive line has been an F across the board.
I'd probably give them a D as overall, just because the injuries that have plagued the unit, and a lot of these guys are second, third strings, and the fact that they haven't looked as bad as like the Colts did versus the Broncos is gives me a little bit of a bump there. I think the pass protection has been okay, and also Cam Fleming. I think we need to just give him some credit because he's actually come in and been a solid player out there. Quinn Miners in the run game has been good, but I'm going to give them a solid D right now. It's a unit that is going to be massively revamped this offseason. Everything sounds like Bronco guys, people connected to the team, keep scouting offensive tackles, get used to the offensive line. Broncos are going to go really hard at the offensive line this offseason. Doesn't mean they're going to be blinders for that in the draft, nor should they be. Could be a cornerback, could be people will freak out, but could be a wide receiver. Just because KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy weren't traded in the trade deadline doesn't mean they're not going to be traded in the offseason. They were already put out on the trade block and they were getting offers for them. That doesn't just go away. But right now, offensive line D.
Fleming's been okay. Your tackles have been okay. It's that the unholy triumvirate of Reisner, Cushenberry, Glasgow at guard, center, guard has been Swiss cheese.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Not even stinky Swiss cheese, because that would at least make you slow down before you went right through it. So it's just they've been a turnstile. It's terrible.
Not good enough. And I need to get somebody on ESPN or PFF in here to understand what the hell is going on with their grades. Because like looking at the Broncos offensive line is top 10 this season in pass protection and run blocking. Like how? I mean, this team has, I think, one 20+ yard run this season. I understand that maybe Cushenberry is in front of a guy, but it's in front of a guy 4 yards back into the defensive line. And Red John coming and making me laugh. How do we get Kim Becker in the morning? You guys are an eyesore. Kim has moved on to other opportunities. God bless her. I think she's at Altitude Sports now. So wishing her nothing but the best. I guess we can show some skin on here if that would be no.
Super's gonna have to go up.
Some people come in and say flirt with Scott sometimes. Some of the ladies in here. So sorry, Red John. Moving on now. Wide receivers. I'm going to give the Broncos wide receivers a solid C. I think they are an average unit across the board. Had more hope this season for Courtland Sutton. He started off really hot. I think through the first 3 games, he was one of the top 10 wide receivers in football, according to Football Outsiders. He's fallen off massively in the last 3. He needs to be better. He needs also these unit, if they're going to work the quick pass game via the screen, somebody not named KJ Hamler needs to freaking sack up and block somebody on the perimeter, because I'm getting sick and tired of seeing Jerry Jeudy look like he's olaying somebody, or Courtland Sutton, as big as he is, oh, right by me. No way KJ Hamler should be your best blocking wide receiver. That's disgusting. That's despicable.
Yeah, you said it. I'm not even going to say anything else on that. So now you talk me into like a C- on that, just for the stuff off the ball. There's been too many drops too. Across the board, everybody wants to get on Jerry Jeudy about drop balls. I've seen everybody drop passes.
Yep.
That was maybe in the first or second game, but I watched it in, here comes a super. I'm not sure. $2 isn't going to, I'm just kidding. Mr. Allen. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for the support, my friend. Keeps us going for sure.
Yeah.
Coming in with the super. What's up, guys? Should we expect Gregory and Browning back? Definitely need them now. How close is it? How close is it? I mean, Gregory he should be 4. It should be 4 games. He should be eligible.
Eligible does not mean back.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
for the
but
chat.
what it means is there should start being some chatter about how close he is.
I think if these guys were close and they knew they were going to get one of them back, you do not see the Jacob Martin trade. I think the Jacob Martin trade lends itself to, we are probably still 3 to 4 weeks away, including the bye week, from getting both of those guys back, maybe even one of them. So I think it's probably not going to be until, God, I can't even think, the Arizona game, maybe, when you're starting to talk about those guys. I do not expect them back for the Titans. You maybe will get back one of them for Vegas, but I think you're still talking about another 4 weeks, so 3 games and the bye week for these guys. But they're evaluating it 1 week at a time. Something can change rapidly. But again, tea leaves. Are you trading the draft capital to bring in another edge rusher if you're bringing back Browning and Gregory soon? I don't think so.
I agree. Let's put a lid on the wide receivers. On the offense again.
We need tight end still.
It's like I almost want to give everybody an incomplete on offense. It's just hard for me to say how good are the wide receivers doing. Your offensive line stinks. How good is your running backs doing? I don't know, because the defensive line is killing your offensive line. How well is your quarterback doing? I don't know, because the defensive line is is abusing your offensive line. It's, again, I hate to keep beating this dead horse. And Bama X, are you watching all 22? I hadn't noticed. No, I'm just kidding. If we know you're watching the all 22 Bama X, you mention it every show. So thank you very much. Jeudy was definitely more involved in the game. Quick slants, putting him in motion, reversing, and actually giving him the ball. Wow, what a concept. I said, dude, I've run 5,000 fake jet sweeps. Give me the damn ball.
Jeudy is a great guy to have, and I know that I've been lower on him in this fit in the offense going forward. But right now, Judy's the only guy you have on offense that if the other team goes to man coverage, he's winning that man coverage matchup. So he's a man beater right now in single coverage if you get him out there. So we saw it last week. He had a couple man plays. They found it and they called it. So that's something hopefully you see better going forward. Jeudy has been a little bit more physical in the blocking game. It's still never going to be a big thing for him, but definitely has played better, but not to the extent where we can't criticize his play so far the first half of the season in regards to when the ball's not coming to me, what am I doing?
Yeah, and I don't want to say he's a luxury player, but that's kind of how I think of him a little bit is, is he going to do the dirty work? The guy that doesn't do the dirty work is your luxury guy. Who's going to be doing your blocking on the outside? Those are core pieces. I need someone like Jerry Jeudy, but after I take care of the other things, which you're talking about blocking outside, but he is improving. So get him more involved. You'll keep him happy, and we'll see how it goes. Over on defense, we'll
Tight
call
ends. We still have tight ends.
I consider them receivers.
Okay.
They're a D on the way up. You know,
I
they
give
were
him
an
C
F.
minus.
It's moved to a D with Dulcich. D for Dulcich. Not that Dulcich is getting a D, but he's bringing an upward swing where you could be talking B, B plus, B minus by then. As a receiver, he's been very, very good.
Yep. And Broncos now with the first round pick, couple maybe tight ends to talk about. I'm against using a first round pick on a tight end, but I think this team has been best personnel wise, not the best talent on the field, but the best efficiency when they've been in 12 personnel. So maybe somebody to pair with Dulcich, like a Darnell Washington. Scott, do you know that does Darnell Washington mean anything to you? Does that name? He's the absolute Frankenstein tight end for the Georgia Bulldogs. Everybody loves Brock Bowers, but he's the one who wears 0, who is 6'7", 270 pounds.
I've seen him for a second, like just watched him early against Oregon, and but I haven't watched a ton of college football yet.
Okay, but we'll see what happens. I'm probably not about using a first round pick on a tight end, given what we just saw with the Hawkinson trade. Value diminishes tremendously compared to value positions, but I digress. Moving forward, I give a C minus, D plus for the tight ends. Edge rushers now, even though they've been injured, I'm going to give the edges an A. With that, and this is grading what they were in the first half of the season. Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Bradley Chubb, especially Baron Browning, man, he's been awesome. Randy Gregory when he was healthy out there, and that's been a good unit so
and
far.
Bradley Chubb has been part of it this time. Now, I agree, it has been an A with all the names you just mentioned. At some point, everybody has chipped in. Benito, I don't know if you said Benito.
I did.
Benito's been in, has done some good things as well. So as a unit, collectively, they've been really, really good. Now, can they sustain it now that they lost probably their number one? Everybody else moves up a notch.
Yeah.
So we will see. We will see how that goes.
100%.
But yeah, an A for sure. And an interior line, B plus for me, because I love DJ Jones. I love Draymond Jones. I like Deshaun Williams.
I don't like him as a starter, but
exactly. And you see more 2-man fronts. You see more, more twos in there where Draymond and DJ come in as good old fashioned defensive tackles.
And if the Broncos stick in this heavy penny front going forward, I think interior defensive line, even though it's been strong, is something you consider with a first round pick, just because that third defensive lineman is a starter. Deshaun Williams and Mike Purcell, I think, are free agents at the end of the season. And it's a heavy rotational position. So I know I agree with you guys, offensive line. But you have to pick what's from available. And if the best player is an interior defensive lineman on your board by a long shot, that's a versatile player that you can move across the line, nose tackle, 5 tech, 3, 4 eye, whatever. That's something you consider here. Deshaun Williams has been really bad in the run game. For the most part, it seems like teams are targeting 99 or the edge rushers in the run game, running away from number 97 out there, DJ Jones. But Draymond and DJ, they've been great. I give this unit a B plus. Also, Matt Henningsen. I think he's looking like a solid rotational player coming forward. I don't think he's ever going to be a starter, but a cheap guy who can get out there, play positions across the board. A 6th round pick, I believe. I mean, that looks like a really good pick right now for the Broncos as another guy coming in as a rotational cheap piece.
The Georgia-Tennessee game will be lots of players to watch, and I'm actually off this weekend. I will not be behind the scenes Friday night because we've got 2 baseball games Friday night instead of 2 on Saturday. Usually I'm at Kid Sports all day on Saturday. So we got scheduled for Friday night for baseball, and that gives me Saturday to watch some college football. So I will definitely check out Georgia-Tennessee.
Oh, man, Scott, I know that you are not about wide receiver, but I don't know how much Tennessee, Alabama of that game you watched.
I watched a guy go for about 500 yards and 17 touchdowns.
The receiver? Are you talking about the receiver? Okay. Number 11, Jalen Hyatt. Oh, my God. He reminds me of Will Fuller. He is just explosive. I think he's got better ball skills. But Jalen Hyatt, one to watch. Tennessee has an awesome receiving core. Brew McCoy also is incredible.
Tennessee used to be known as wide receiver U.
Yeah.
I mean back in the 80s, that was wide receiver U. And then well, not anymore, but
maybe. Yeah, Jalen Hyatt, man. Oh, man, he's a explosive play waiting to happen. A lot of fun. Love myself some explosive wide receivers. Bama X. Sorry, Bama X. That's too bad. Ethan coming in here. You might get another chance, Bama X. So just keep playing the games in front of you. I do like the Vols, though. That's probably my SEC team if I had to pick one. DWI guys coming in 50 pounds and great shows, Jensen Broncos country. Have a good weekend. And just like that, Ethan's in here. Thank you so much, Ethan. Linebackers. I'm going to give the linebackers a B minus. You giving them a C. I'm going to give them a B minus. I think Alex Singleton has played well above expectation. Josie Jewell, when he's healthy, is a B, solid, just BBB kind of guy, which is fine for what you're paying him. I've been really disappointed in Jonas Griffith. He has not taken that mental step forward. He's caught in the diagnosing too often. Probably your best guys right now are Singleton.
Seems to play better when Josie Jewell's on the field with him.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
No, it's not. But I give them a B minus. I'm not also just bringing it back here, keep bringing everything back to the draft. I'm not about taking a linebacker in the top 20 in the draft, really. But let's say this San Francisco pick is at pick 28. If there's a linebacker there you love and you're living in penny front, where it's one linebacker, that puts a lot of onus on that linebacker. You better damn well be sure he's smart and can process things, because if he's the only one out there, if he messes up, the entire integrity of the defense behind him is screwed for real. But if there's a linebacker you love who has the headiness and the processing, maybe from like pick 26 on, you can
give me a good Stanford guy, Boston College guy that are, that has the physical tools. Because you mentioned the smarts and the headiness. Cornerbacks, I'll separate from safeties. K1's been great. We know Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain's been great. K1 has been outstanding.
Yeah.
Another great free agent signing. He's been outstanding. And then, I think you've seen how important Ronald Darby was to this defense. So for the first part, he was good. And then, you're doing what you can in the other spot. You could use a little help over there now too, though. But I think cornerback's been an A. Safety's been a B minus. It's been okay. Aside from a couple, now that Justin Simmons is back, he missed a good part of the first half of the season.
Yep.
You see what a difference he makes, the flash plays and stuff. So it's, we're talking about if Justin Simmons plays like he did against the Jaguars, it's an A again. So upward trajectory again. I'm
going to give the cornerbacks a B. Kawan Williams has been the dark horse of this team so far this season. You are right. We probably need to be saying his name more often with how good he's been. I don't want to cuss because I don't want to get in trouble with this. I'm fuming with that penalty that they called on him where he tackled that offensive lineman into the player who got the receipt. I mean, what the hell are
physical? I've talked about him, setting an edge. I'm like, when he's by himself over there, he turns into an edge defender. He's physical as hell.
And you need that in a penny front.
You need that in the corners. Yeah, and you need that in the nickel corner because you are out there at outside linebacker in that same spot on the field. You are
responsible for the same kind of gap as a Will would be. So 100%. He's been incredible. I know cornerbacks tend to fall off, but he only signed a 1-year deal. I would be looking to pay him now. You got some money freed up from Bradley Chubb. Come on, let's come back for another year. I guess the big question is, if you fire Hackett, then you're running a new scheme, and then you're stuck with somebody who's maybe not as much of a fit.
Yeah, but his skills translate. I want guys that are scheme independent and physical, quick, and good coverage, plays in any freaking scheme. I'll take him.
Yeah,
I'll take him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been awesome. Safeties, I'll probably give them a B overall. Kareem Jackson scares the absolute hell out of me, so I don't want to disparage him too much, but he looks 3 steps slower this season, and I'm pretty bummed that as soon as Justin Simmons came back, Caden Stearns gets hurt with a pretty significant hip injury. So that's probably your 2023 starting safety duo in Simmons and Stearns. But I think overall they've been a B. Hopefully they'll get a little bit better out there. But finally, the kicking unit, I'm going to give Brandon McManus a C. I know it's never his fault. He'll be the first to tell you that on Twitter. But Corliss Waitman probably gets a C as well. He's been a B as a puncher, but a D as a holder. So McManus isn't completely wrong with his saying that sometimes the holds have been wrong, poor. Broncos have tried to bring in long snappers like crazy too, because the long snapper has been bad so far this season. So probably C's across the board for the special teams.
I'd go I'm a little bit more forgiving. I think McManus is a B. I think he's been, again, it's relative to expectations and, the bias. We're all biased, say that a zillion times. We all have biases. It's what makes up our personalities. And the Money McManus thing, is he that guy? No, but he's okay. He's still a professional kicker. Good. Montrell Washington, with the ball in his hands, he's been an A. But I think he's made some mistakes on fielding the punts, not just even fumbles, but on decisions on when to field the punts or return a kick. So that, but I don't mind a rookie erring on being a little aggressive as a rookie. And then punting, I thought your punting unit has been really good. Again, was it Corliss Williamson? I'm forgetting. It's Corliss Williamson again. I've said that before. That's
Corliss
Big
Waitman.
Nasty from Arkansas, from
Waitman.
the '90s championship teams. Waitman, he won the freaking 49ers game. I mean, not by himself, obviously, but he was the key difference in that game. So I think he's been pretty good. And Toyin Williams, sorry we didn't get to catch up with you over in the UK. Clocks changed. Thank God I got to sleep an extra hour on that trip. Ours changed Sunday morning, so we'll be back on level terms starting next week. And on that, we should probably get about out of here, Nick.
Yeah, we probably should get out of here. Good show today. Broncos bye week. Good to review the team and talk about this a little more. Further digesting the Bradley Chubb trade. We said on here, any trade with Chubb is probably coming with a new deal on the heels of it. Had to pass that physical yesterday and then announcement coming in today. So congrats to Bradley Chubb securing the bag. And I'm pulling for him out there in Miami. I hope it works out for the Dolphins in that regard. I'm not a Dolphins fan by any means, but Bradley Chubb, I think, did everything right out here. I know that I think next week Bradley Chubb has a big event for his foundation in Denver next week, which is kind of bad timing, I guess, but always came across as a very intelligent, hardworking person. So pulling for Chubb, happy to see him get that bag, and hopefully he can stay healthy with Miami and don't have to cheer against him succeeding for the Broncos to look good or draft picks or anything. Not somebody who left unceremoniously in Denver. I hope he does well.
Yeah, it'll be easy to root against the 49ers.
Oh, Ernie, you crack me up, man. Booing him. But we appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod and, of course, at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you're joining our Facebook community at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Scott, I don't know if you saw somebody, I think it was Travis, mentioned that the notifications didn't go up on Facebook for the last few shows. So not sure what's going on there, but figured I'd make sure you guys are tuning in. We're pretty, especially Scott and I, we're pretty consistent with our time getting on these shows. So just, you don't have to get the notification. Train yourself to know that we're going to be live at this time. Because as much as I've been
follow on multiple channels, get the YouTube notifications too.
Yeah.
Yep. Can help. We actually, congratulations are in order to the Mile High Huddle. When I logged in this morning, it was at 17000. 17,000 of y'all follow the Mile High Huddle YouTube page. So congratulations to Chad and Nick and everybody that's been involved with this over the last several years.
Been busy. I've not covered this Broncos team when they've had a winning season. I started in 2016, so right after the Super Bowl run. Maybe I am really just the bad luck charm here, but appreciate you guys so much. We will see you guys again next Monday morning, and who knows what we'll talk about then? Maybe some more Broncos stuff, maybe some more holistic stuff. I'd love to.
Something will happen. There'll be plenty of things to talk about. We'll talk about maybe the latest Josh McDaniels faux pas.
Yeah, God. I'd also love to talk because it is the bye week. Obviously, we'll get into Titans. We'll talk a little bit about that Sunday night Tennessee game, but Broncos are back in the first round of the draft. Might be time to talk a little bit of philosophy and team building and just directionality. We've kind of hinted at it. Maybe it's time to dig in even a little deeper on that. So appreciate you guys. You guys have a good one. Make sure you're choosing compassion and kindness. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your bye week. Go Broncos.